All right, guys, today I am going to talk about mindfulness because I think it's very important when you're thinking about making changes in your life and making changes about how we treat other people, how we treat our spouse, how we treat random Joe Blow that we see on the street. And so this is just going to be a really good tool for you. And as we move forward and as I'm continuing to make these videos, I'm going to continue referencing this back. So you'll probably want to come back to this video from time to time and take a look. So again, this is going to be about being mindful. And it's going to be about how to be more objective, more clear, and communicate what you need more effectively. So I'm going to jump into it. And so I'm going to jump into a lot of stuff that I'm going to be talking to you about. It's going to be, stuff I've been through, stuff my clients have been through, because I've been doing this and I've been in this field for over 20 years now. I hope this information is helpful and it helps change your life, because when you change your life, you're going to change somebody else's. All right, so you're going to see up on the board here, I have two different circles, and you're going to have one in the middle. So, and this is called the wise mind, or the three minds rather, and it was created by Miss Marsha Lenahan, Dr. Marsha Lenahan, and it was originally devised in order to help people with dialectical behavior therapy, but over time, what I started to realize was that this stuff also helped with so many different areas of life. Whether that was relationships, dealing with alcohol and drug therapy, couples therapy, family therapy, just in doing personal growth in addition to that, because the first thing you have to be able to do is be more mindful about what's going on, both your thoughts, your behaviors, your emotions. In addition to that, something that I'll get into in another video, which I may do right after this, is also what's going on physiologically, because that's definitely something that I need to explain to you. All right, so first things first, I'm going to explain all this first so it makes a little bit of sense. And I hate it, I'm not going to be able to really, how should I say, zoom in, but I will do my best to explain it. Hopefully it'll make a little bit of sense. All right, so long story short is we have an emotional mind and we also have a reasonable mind. And so where I'm kind of going with this is, so let's start with emotional. There's pros and cons to each of these, right? So pros for your emotional mind, or I shouldn't say pros and cons, but so what we have in our emotional mind is we tend to think of the negatives, like being impulsive, magical thinking, so just making things up in our mind as we go, which we do tend to do. We tend to associate it with anger, hot thoughts, and apathy. And in this emotional mind, we can be those things. We can be subjective, but we can also experience other emotions such as obviously depression, sadness, anxiety, energy, fun, excited, things like that. But this is where we can see a lot of different, or I should say maladaptive thinking occur. Such as making assumptions or blowing things out of proportion or minimizing our own behaviors, for example. So again, this is a place for us to notice, hey, these are very good indicators that, hey, we might be over here. I'm getting upset. I notice it coming on. I know that I'm getting over there, so I'm more over here. All right, so going back, but at the same time, I will say the good news about being an emotional mind, this is also a very good place. This is where love and connectedness occur as well. Because if I'm only in my rational mind, or my reasonable mind, then what I'm doing is I'm only thinking about the facts. I'm only thinking about the pros and cons, and that's it. I'm not really having this gray area. So there are some positives to being in the emotional mind. So going over here, switching over to reasonable mind, is the reasonable mind is your logical mind. Okay, your rational mind is your logical mind. And if you think about this is where you're going to be more objective, where you're going to be thinking more about your facts. So what you see, what you hear, those are going to be facts. It's not subjective. It's not what I think. It's not what I heard from TikTok or YouTube, or some person doesn't know what the HE double hockey sticks are talking about. This is going to be objective only. So when I'm thinking objectively, I'm thinking about what the person say, what was the volume that they had, what were their mannerisms, were they talking a lot with their hands, were they talking really fast, are they talking really slow? Are they really hyper vigilant about what they're saying? How is their speech? What are they saying? Are they cursing? Are they things of that nature? So over here, when I'm in this mind, I'm being factual, I'm being logical, I'm being objective. I tend to be more in a black and white thing, black and white kind of arena with my thinking typically. And then I can also set some boundaries here. Not saying I can't do it over here, but I'm going to be more able to do it over here. The problem with being in a reasonable and rational mind, from what people usually think, and is that, this is where I always want to be. No, you do not always want to be there. You really want a culmination of the two, because you need to also be able to express your emotions, right? So, with that being said, it's great to be over here, but sometimes we don't make the best decisions that we need to make because we're over here, because this can actually come off apathetic, like I don't care. And your partner or the other person on the other side of this conversation needs to know that you are invested and that you are tracking, so to say, what they're saying. So hit like buttons. Hopefully that is making some sense for you. All right, so in the middle of these two things, this is a culmination of the two. We call this the wise mind. And so your wise mind, I'm thinking of it being wise as wisdom, right? Things that you already know, things that you've been taught, things you've learned from other people that you can bring in that can help you to be effective with your communication, your behavior with other folks. So that's what I want you to think about with this. And so to get to a wise mind, there's some really great skill sets that Dr. Lenahan had pointed out that would help with this. And I'm probably going to explain it more differently than she will. So you'll probably hear a little spin off on anybody that's talking about communication skills, right? We can have the same thing and talk about something different. What's why? Because of our different experiences in life, right? And I'll get into that another day at a time. But for this, we have the what skills, which is what you do to get to a wise mind, and then we have the how skills, which is how to use the what skills. All right, so again, I'm going to say we have what skills and how skills. What skills are what to do to get to a wise mind, and the how skills are how to use the what skills. So we have three things that go into our how or what skills: observe, describe, and participate. All right. So the first thing that we have to do is observe. Now, what are we observing? We are going to observe what our thoughts are, what our emotions are, and what our behavior is. And also, finally, you're going to be looking at your physiology. What is your body telling you? There's a really good book called The Body Takes a Score, and I'll get into this another day, but long story short, your body is going to have a physiological response to whatever it's seeing or being exposed to, okay? And so you're going to have a reaction to that, right? And so we have our internal and our external compartments that we need to be observant of. I know that sounds like a lot, and it is at first. But the big thing I want you to really internalize here is getting a hold of what do I think? What do I feel? What are my behaviors? What is my physiology telling me right now based on what I'm seeing? All right? Next thing I'm going to do is describe. So this is actually where we're starting to put into words, hey, you know what, I can notice some anger popping up. I can notice that I'm getting a little anxious here. I'm starting to move my hands a lot. I'm starting to get my palms are getting a little sweaty. I'm talking faster, my volume's increasing. That is putting a description onto what you're observing. I know we're going at a snail's pace here because this is a snail's pace, because in order to observe, you have to get used to the small stuff. You have to notice the small things that are adding up, right? Because the small stuff usually adds up to the big things. It's like in relationships. It's never about the dishes. But those dishes turn into a huge issue later on, right? So again, we're going to start small. We're going to start slow. So again, describing the thoughts, the behaviors, the emotions, and the physiology, which I forgot to write up there. The next thing, the final step of what skills is participating. So here's the deal with participating. When we participate, you have to participate in what is, not what we wish it was. I wish that things would have worked out between me and my wife, but guess what? They didn't. And I can be upset and frustrated and think like what Tony Robbins talks about is less loss than never all day long. Where's that going to put me? A bad state of mind. And so when I'm in a bad state of mind, I can't participate in what's actually going on. I start participating in what I wish would have happened, which only leads to frustration, anger, depression, anxiety, so on and so forth, right? And then I get in this different mentality set. So you got to participate in what is. And yes, I'm going to give you a little bit of tidbits of my life as I go through some of this, just to give you personal examples, and also examples that I hear from my clients as well. So, all right, so we participate in what is, because again, when we're participating in coulda, shoulda, woulda, if, ands, and buts, what we're actually participating is a false reality, because that's a whole nother reality versus what's actually going on over here. And that's what you have to deal with, all right? Because really what's going on is when I try to participate in my expectations, what am I participating in? I'm not participating effectively. I'm participating in what I wish would have happened, but that's not what actually happened. That's not what went down. And if I'm going to participate effectively in what's going on, I have to deal with what is going on. So there's a difference between what I think should have happened and what is actually going on. I hope that makes sense. Rewind if you need to. All right. How skills. So how to use the what skills. All right. So right here we have three more: non-judgmental, one mindfully, and effectiveness. All right. So non-judgmental being this, and this is where you really got to break things down. So when I'm being non-judgmental, what I'm doing is I'm not putting labels on things. I'm not putting labels on people, right? Like this is a bad person or this is a good person, because when I do that, what's happening is neurologically what's happening is my brain is starting to associate, it actually has emotions associated with certain words, right? So when I think bad, my brain, my physiology already starts going into defense mode. So you got to watch that. So again, we're taking all the labels out. And why are we doing this? We're doing this because it helps put us in our wise mind versus our emotional mind. Okay? And it helps us to communicate more effectively with other people. And that's the whole goal here. We want to communicate effectively with people. Not halfway, not half-assed, excuse my French, but that's how we want to do that, right? It's like what the Bible says, right? It says, be angry, but do not sin. Right? Okay, so here's the deal. I can be angry in here. I'm going to be upset right here. But there's a certain way that I can describe what I'm seeing and how I'm feeling without necessarily throwing out all the judgments, because what do I do when I'm upset and when I'm frustrated, when I'm anxious and I'm in fear? I tend to do things and say things impulsively because I'm over here in my emotional mind. And then I regret it later, right? I think we've all been there, done that. And if you raise your hand if that's where you've been at before. I know I have. I'm human. It is what it is. But our goal is to do it at less frequency and with less intensity. That's the goal. All right. And I'll be making an anger management section at some time along with communication patterns. So you will actually see probably two different sections. You'll be hearing me say the same lingo over and over and over because, again, it's just one of those things you need to catch, and it's going to help you. All right, one mindfully is the next one. And so this is saying I'm going to do one thing at a time. One thing, that's right. We're not on our phones trying to talk to somebody at the same time. And we already know how that goes. How many times have you been on the phone talking to somebody and somebody's been sitting here talking to you the whole time? How much of the conversation do you actually internalize? How much of it do you actually hear up here? And how much can you actually communicate back to them? How much can you validate back to them or summarize? 50%, 40%, 60% sometimes. Our brains cannot focus on two things. Plenty of studies show that we cannot focus on two things at one time. We can focus intermittently. So I can focus for 10 minutes here and then focus 20 minutes over here. Now you can do this one mindfully, like for example, let's say I got a lot of tasks I need to complete for the day. Well, I can complete, like this video, for example. This is a task. I'm focused on this task. I'm not thinking about who I need to call in the next, 30, 45 minutes, right? I'm focused on this task. And then I'm going to spend that amount of time here, and then I'll spend the next amount of time over here. So again, it's just dividing my time up. But what am I doing? I'm doing it one at a time. And the same thing goes with arguments or things that you're in disagreement with. So when you have that person that says, hopefully you've heard this, says, well, remember 6 months ago when you did that's okay. That's okay. We I can handle that. But can we get through this conversation first? We need to get through this conversation first. Sometimes that needs a broken record attached to it. But again, we're one mindfully. We're doing one thing at a time. We're talking about one subject at a time. We can get back to the 6 months later, right? All right. So sometimes that one thing will take care of the 6 months. All right, effectiveness. Effectively, guys, what's the word mean, right? Doing something that works, right? So when I'm doing something effectively, essentially what I'm doing is I'm doing what works. And what works in that particular situation. So again, remember, I'm using my how skills and my what skills. So when I participate, I'm going to participate non-judgmentally, one mindfully, and effectively. And when I'm participating effectively, I'm participating in what is and the skills that will work in reality, not what I wish had happened or what I wish would occur. If you start getting wrapped up into where the future is and where you wish things were, man, you're gonna go down a rabbit hole. Guys, I don't want you to go down that route, because that route will take you in the wrong direction, and that is going to kill your hopes and dreams and how you communicate with other people. So again, just to recap here, again, Marsha Lenahan came up with this. Again, it's called the 3 minds. All right. And we have our emotional mind, we have our reasonable mind, and in the middle we have a mixture of both with the whys, and then we have what skills and how skills. And with the what skills is how to be in a wise mind, aka we're being more mindful. And these are things we need to be mindful of, such as our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, and our physiology. Our physiology is going to tell us a lot. Sometimes before even our thoughts and emotions come up, we also need to be observant of what other people are doing, saying, and doing, because we have triggers, right? People, places, things, right? And then we describe, we participate, and again, we participate in what is, and then we go down to the how skills, and so this is all going to be how we use the what skills. So non-judgmentally, one mindfully, and effectively. All right, guys, I hope this is helpful.